Hi everyone, I want to welcome you to MLS 5331. What I want to do today is go over the syllabus, some of the main assignments, and hopefully answer any questions you might have as we start this new 8-week block. My name is Art Aguirre. I know usually folks want to know first of all what they should call me. I give students a number of options. You can just call me Art. I know some folks don't like calling professors by their first name, so you can call me Dr. Aguirre. I also know some folks have trouble with my last name, so you can call me Dr. Art, Dr. A, Art, Dr. Aguirre. Any of those work. Just don't call me Mr. because those last 4 years were pretty tough. So I just asked it. You can call me by my first name, that's totally fine, but if you want to call me something, you can call me Dr. A, Dr. Art, Dr. Aguirre. Let's go ahead and go over to the syllabus here. So this is my email address right there underneath my name. That is my preferred method of, like, if you're going to send me a message, send me an email. I don't even believe I have the messaging function open on Blackboard. I have to double check that. But it's less convenient for me in terms of how quickly I can respond to you, because with my email, it's on my phone at all times. And so I'm a little bit faster on email. But I'm also available via Zoom and Hangouts and FaceTime, whatever you may need. I can get you my cell phone number. That way, in case you have any questions. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that now while we have this thing up. So that is my cell phone number. If you need to get a hold of me very quickly, my preferred method of communication and the fastest way you'll get a hold of me is via text message. In fact, if you want to call me, my suggestion would be to send me a text message first. That way I can let you know when is the best time you can call me, even if it's not during my office hours. As we all know, COVID's going on, so I don't have any in-office hours at UTEP on campus. But you can tell here from my online office hours, I'm going to be available Wednesdays 1:30 to 4 p.m. And then what I'm going to do for my office hours on Thursdays from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. is I'm going to be sending you all an email later this week. In that email, I'm going to have a Zoom invite. It's not required. You do not need to stop by on Thursdays from 3:30 to 4:30, but that is going to be a standing time where I will log into Zoom. You will have a link, and if you have questions, you can log in that way. I've noticed for whatever reason, there are some students who, despite what I say and what information I put on there, they're still a little hesitant to reach out to me. So this way you have a link. I'm going to be available via Zoom, and it'll be the same Zoom link for all 8 weeks. So if you want to meet with me via the Zoom link, or if there's a few of you all that want to meet with me at the same time, that is completely fine, but that will be available both on Skype and on Zoom on Thursdays, and then solely on Skype on Wednesdays from 1:30 to 4. You can find my Skype username right here. It's art.utep@gmail.com. Answer any questions you might have. And if those office hours do not work for you, that's totally fine. Just give me a heads up. Let me know what day will work, and we can figure out a time that'll work for both of our schedules. So for leadership communication, what I've tried to do with this course is kind of bring in, of course, the leadership strategies and skills that I think are pertinent for success. But I also bring in my own background. I got my PhD and my master's and my undergrad all in communication and different concentrations of communication. But I like bringing those together because I think more often than not, if you talk to people in the workplace or in different organizations about how things could be improved, I would say the majority of the responses are going to say we need better communication. But it really comes down to how we define what better communication looks like. So I like combining all of those things together. A little bit of my background in intercultural communication, interpersonal communication, and of course the leadership skills that we'll be going over as well. These are the two required texts for the course. Stephen Denning's The Secret Language of Leadership and Charlene Lee, The Engaged Leader. The one we'll be starting out with for the first, I believe it's 5 weeks of the semester, is the Denning book. So that's the one that you need to get right away. You can wait a little bit before The Engaged Leader with Charlene Lee. But those are the only two textbooks we'll be using. Any other readings that we have will be available to you via Blackboard. In terms of the assignments, we really only have 4 major parts of your grade. So the biggest part is going to be the discussion boards. So every week I'll post a discussion board online. This week's post is already up, but after this week, so for example, this coming Sunday, which is if I'm doing my math right, the 25th, at midnight on the 25th, the new discussion board will post up. So you can go to Blackboard, you can find it there. You'll need to post your original response to that discussion post by Wednesday. and then you have to respond by the following Sunday night. The only exception is this first one because I know everyone just is getting their access on Monday, so I pushed it back a little bit. Your original response is due by Friday, and then your response is due by Sunday. But it's very simple. The first one is just kind of an introduction thing. And I'll change this date right now as soon as I finish with this Skype or with this lecture recording. But that's all you really need. You need to respond to at least 3 classmates. It can't just be like, yes, I agree. Really try to engage with one another, because that's really the discussion board is what we're trying to replicate or kind of replace the time you normally would have spent in class. The next major assignment that will be due in the class will be midway through the semester, and that's our leadership demonstration. If this were a face-to-face class, the way this would normally look is I would put people together in groups, or folks would group themselves up together in about groups of 3 or 4, and then they would lead class in a particular week, and they would each take a turn and take about an hour and a half of the class leading essentially the discussion, and I would kind of chime in here and there. In lieu of that, what I want you to do is you can pick anything out of the material we have available for this course. In addition to the 2 textbooks that I have on leadership, I also was able to find a really good communication theory textbook, and I have it uploaded on Blackboard. I put that up there for a number of reasons. One, I think it's a really good resource to better understand communication. I think there's a lot of things that go on in our day-to-day that we recognize but don't really know exactly how they work in terms of why people do the things that they do. And that book has a ton of great theories on kind of explaining some of those phenomena. But it's also really helpful for the final paper, which I'll get into in a little bit. And so I'm giving you that because the leadership textbooks that we're using are really heavy on strategies and not as heavy on theory. And for our final paper, a lot of my former students have said theory is a little bit easier in terms of putting that paper together. So essentially for your leadership demonstration, you can choose anything out of the Denning book, the Lee book, the Griffin book, which is the communication theory textbook, or any of the articles. And you just need to record yourself doing a 10 to 12 minute lecture. And it's not even a lecture. It's really essentially what you want to do. I've seen students get really creative. Some students will, if they're stationed somewhere, they'll include some of their team members. I've had some folks include some of their family members, kind of do activities or skits or whatever you want to do to essentially better explain whatever concept you're covering. There are some folks that have really great skills in terms of video editing, and they do this huge elaborate lecture. And I've seen some folks just kind of put their cell phone up, turn on the camera at their kitchen table, and just kind of go over some of the main points of that chapter. It is completely and totally up to you on how you want to handle your leadership demonstration. If you have questions for me, if you want to run some ideas by me, that's totally fine. I want you to have as much fun as you potentially could have explaining whatever concept or chapter, or if you want to do a couple chapters, it's really up to you on what you want to cover on this leadership demonstration. The only thing is that you can actually show that you're covering the material, and then it's 10 to 12 minutes long. That's really it, and it's really up to you on how you want to cover that time. If you go a little bit over those 12 minutes, it's totally fine. I also don't want you to turn in like a 30-minute lecture either. So 10 to 12 minutes is kind of your guideline. It does need to be at least 10 minutes, but if you go over the 12, that's totally fine. Class participation is my way of kind of giving you a little bit of a buffer on your grade. It's essentially as long as you're participating in class, you're not missing any assignments, that should be a free 100 points for everybody. And the last assignment is your final paper. The way I like explaining this paper is that I've essentially broken it up into 3 parts. Because of this program, we really don't have the full 16 weeks where if we're doing a full academic graduate level paper, I would have you go through the full kind of structure of a introduction and then a literature review and then your methodology and then your analysis and then your discussion and your conclusion. But that is far too much to cover in just 8 weeks, and it's really difficult to even go over that kind of a structure in an online setting. That said, I kind of wanted to give you the gist of what that would look like, specifically because I think the analysis and discussion part of a paper is the most important. But think of this paper as 3 different papers kind of put together. And in the first paper, all you're doing is talking about a theory or a strategy, whether it's a communication or leadership theory, leadership strategy, some guidelines that you get out of Denning or Lee. But all you're doing in that first paper is talking about that theory or that strategy, nothing else. Then what you're going to do is pick something that you're going to apply that theory or strategy to kind of explain it. And I'll give you kind of an example. So there's plenty of times when I was going through my doctoral program where my mom or a family member or a friend would ask me what I'm writing a paper about. And so I would explain a particular theory that I was covering, and then of course they'd look at me bored out of their mind because I used a bunch of words that are confusing or said something that was really nerdy or whatever. And they're like, help me understand what exactly this theory is all about. So then I try to think of something that we both know about. So if I was talking to my mom, I'd be like, okay, you know how you love Grey's Anatomy and I watch Grey's Anatomy? Well, when this person and this person had an argument and a conflict, this theory says that if this person would have approached it in this way, or if this person would have done this in that way, this particular conflict would have been alleviated or improved or would have been avoided, or this situation would have been better handled if they had applied this part of this particular person's theory. So that's what you're doing in this paper. So in that first part of your paper, you're just talking about that theory. In the second part of your paper, you would just be talking about Grey's Anatomy. So you'd say, it started in whatever year it started. It stars these people. Here's a general idea about what the show is all about, what hospital it's set at, who the main characters are. And at the very end of that second section, it's been going on for this number of seasons. And for this paper, I'll be focusing on this one episode. And in this episode, this is what happens. So that's your second part of your paper. Finally, in your third part of your paper, you are applying that theory to that episode. It could be a TV show. It could be a few scenes from a movie. It could be a political speech or any kind of speech. There are a number of things that you could use for that second paper, for that what we call like an artifact that you're applying that theory to. So whether it's a TV show or a movie or a speech, or even if you want to use like a case study of some kind and use kind of like a business example or some sort of nonprofit or any type of like business organization, if they were in the news and you want to kind of highlight some of the things that they did wrong or what a particular CEO or leader did wrong, that's totally fine. And you just apply the theory in that third part of your paper, right? So if we're sticking with this example, in that second paper, you just talked about Grey's Anatomy and the scenes or that particular episode. And then in the third part, you'd say, okay, in this episode, this person says this and it creates this conflict, let's say. Well, in this theory, or using Denning, they say to avoid or to better understand your team members, you should be doing X, Y, and Z. If this character would have done this to this character, they would have had a better understanding and would have avoided this conflict. That's kind of what you're doing with this paper. You make sure you have enough examples that you can fill out your third part of your paper, and that's it. 10 to 12 pages. At that point, you'd have your three main parts, and you just need to have like a short intro, a short conclusion, maybe some transition sentences in the middle. But that's the structure of your paper, and I know for some folks it's overwhelming. I've had a number of students who tell me that in my class it's their first big 10 to 12 page paper, and I get it. I want you to understand that I'm trying to put this in a way that makes sense and will better prepare you for any future papers that you have. I've been fortunate enough that I've had students come up to me later on and say they still continue using this structure because it helps them kind of keep the flow and organization of their paper and make sense of things a little bit easier. So those are all your assignments. That's all that we're expecting for the semester. So it's essentially making sure you're staying on top of your discussion posts every week, turning in your leadership discussion or your leadership demonstration at the end of week 4, and turning your final paper in at the end of the semester. Let's see what other things I think. I am always making sure I'm available to you all. I've kind of given you all my email, my phone number, all my Skype information. So you should never reach a point in this class where you feel so kind of like you're falling behind that you need to plagiarize. That's completely unnecessary. Whatever help I can provide to you, I am more than willing to give that to you as long as you come to me in a timely manner. I would say just online, make sure that you're treating each other with this respect. I think there's this kind of phenomenon where people kind of are behind the screen. It's easier for them to be a little bit rude. Thankfully, I've only really had a couple of instances where that's actually been the case. But outside of that, everyone pretty much treats each other with respect the way that we should because we're all adults. If you need any accommodations, make sure you speak to Cass. That way they reach out to me and I can provide whatever accommodations we need. Teacher-student communication. I want to help you out as much as I can. That's why I make myself available to you all. However, I can not just foresee that you have any issues. You need to let me know if you are running into any issues. reach out to me as soon as possible if you feel like you're falling behind. There's not a lot I can do if you reach out to me at the end of week 7 and say that you've missed a bunch of discussion boards, you are late on your leadership demonstration, and you don't know what you want to write your paper about, right? There's not a whole lot that I can do in that 1 week to get you back on track. But if you come to me in week 3 or week 4, I can absolutely help you and make sure that we get you to where you need to be by the end of the semester. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. We have the grading scale here. And then here is the calendar, all of the readings that we'll be covering for every week. When your leadership demonstrations are due and your final paper when that's due. And I even provided a little bit of a rubric of what grades at this level or what your writing should look like for this type of grade. But I do like emphasizing that this is a graduate program now, and I'm less concerned with grades. I am more concerned with the fact that you are engaging with the material, you're engaging with your classmates in the discussion board. And so as long as you're staying on top of that, and I can see you're really truly putting an effort into this class, your grade is not something you really should be worried about. You should be doing just fine in this class as long as I see that you're reading the material, engaging with the material, putting as best of an effort as you can on all of your assignments, and engaging with your classmates. So that's it. That's all we have for the semester. I've tried to make this as engaging as I can. I know a lot of students and instructors both talk about kind of the lack of that face-to-face interaction that we get with students. So I've tried to make this as engaging as possible. Every week you'll either get a lecture from me, or I've been fortunate enough that I've had some really great guests come in and we've recorded some interviews and I've posted, and you'll depending on the week, you'll either get a lecture or an interview. And like I said, I'll be sending out that link for Zoom, so that way if you don't feel comfortable just dropping in during my office hours on Wednesdays, you can just log into that Zoom session every Thursday. But like I said a number of times already, please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions at all. I'm more than happy to answer them. I gave you all my cell phone number, so if there is something that you need, or if you want to schedule some time to get on the phone, just shoot me a text. Let me know that you're in my class. Let me know it's MLS 5331. And I'm more than willing to meet with you or talk with you, or set up a time to do like a FaceTime or a Skype session that's better to your schedule. But good luck with this semester. I know you're not, or with this block. I know I'm not the only, for most of you all, I'm not the only class that you're having. And I'm looking forward to seeing your all's discussion and getting some of your assignments and getting to know you all a little bit more. But that is all for the introduction to this course. So good luck with the rest of the semester, and you will see me in the lecture for next week.